You know, actually, I don't think that changes the subject. I think that's probably a large part of it, because there's a big demographic shift that's taking place in the industry. It's a big demographic shift that's happening here at NRC, and there is a transition, and managing those transitions. You know, we have a big knowledge management program at NRC trying to transfer the knowledge and experience as best you can from people who've been around for decades to people who just graduated perhaps 5 years ago, and it's not an easy matter. So I know it's something the whole industry is dealing with, and perhaps as you go through this, that's an important lesson learned for others, because it's probably one of those subtle things that doesn't leap out in your ROP, but it certainly is an ongoing trend that can affect performance. But again, we'll be watching very closely. I do appreciate the personal commitment that you've talked about today. I think that's where recovery begins with the leadership, and I think that's exactly the right kind of message to be sending. So appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you all for your candor today. I didn't expect anybody to come in here and make any excuses. I've had some dealings with y'all in the past. I know y'all are pretty straightforward people that accept responsibility and accountability, so I just want to echo the importance of that, but I appreciate how you presented yourselves. My colleagues have raised some great questions and points. I think Commissioner Apostolakis on corrective action program piece, which was a question I was going to ask, and I think that was really my experience in the Naval Reactors program goes to the heart. If you don't have a way of going about methodically fixing problems, then any list of actions to take is just it's not worth the paper it's printed on. And then Commissioner Spinnicky and Commissioner Mag were talking about the sustainability piece. I know it's of critical importance to you as a single unit operation, and I think we all appreciate the challenges that you have when you have just that one unit as part of your organization. And I know that others have addressed this issue as to how you're using Exelon, IMPO, and so forth. Let me just provide a data point, because we're all creatures of our experience, that really framed my experience as a submarine officer. It wasn't until after I finished being a commanding officer for submarines, I had 19 years of commissioned service. In the 4 years after that, I went to sea on 30 different submarines, Atlantic Fleet, Pacific Fleet. And I was observing ship's cleanliness, formality of operations, torpedo shooting, missile launch abilities, etc. I was shocked at the wide spectrum of levels of performance in those 30 submarines. But it wasn't until after I had been captain of my own ship that I had the chance to go do that. And so as a single unit operation, you probably don't have a whole lot of flexibility to send people elsewhere, but to the extent you have an opportunity to send some mid-level managers for periods of time, and Dave, you already talked about that a little bit in your presentation, that caught my attention. I just say that I think that's very valuable to see how are others doing it well. It's easy to say, well, this is screwed up over here, or this is not the way of doing it, but seeing a positive example as to how these operations, whatever aspect of your operations you're talking about, how are they being done well, that to me is pays huge dividends. I'm not trying to lecture you, but providing an analogous experience that I've seen work in a different setting. Gary, let me ask you a question. Given all that's been said today, and I've heard a lot of comments that seem to me to reflect significant self-assessment and reflection by you and your team. How do you assess your workforce's receptivity to making the changes that you think as a CEO are necessary in order to get to where you want to go?
I appreciate that question, because that's one that's near and dear to me, and I'll tell you exactly how I do it. I go out and ask. There's nothing more than personal contact that will allow you to assess that. So I'm out in the spaces, I'm asking people about it. We've had direct meetings with all our unions and all their e-boards, and even though they may not be working at Fort Calhoun, they're working in other parts of the company. The entire company is willing to help Fort Calhoun get better. And it's by personal interaction that I make that assessment. There are other more formal areas. I've started a practice called Sunrise Meetings. I think it gets its name because they start at 6:30. And they're very structured in the sense that all groups are there to go over information and specific questions. They vary from meeting to meeting. The second thing I do is I walk down a system with a system engineer and take operators and find out what they're thinking about it, as well as a system engineer. I found that allows the system engineer to have a candidness when the operator's standing there talking about the system and its operation as well. And then the third, I go to training. And I assess by interaction with the training staff and with operators there what their willingness to change is. So it's by personal interaction, Commissioner. And they are willing to change.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I'm not going to say good luck because you don't get out of bad situations by luck. It's by hard work and persistence. So I wish you well in your endeavors. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I don't have any other questions either. I think many of the issues have been covered already, and the staff, I think, has a good process, and I encourage you to continue to interact with them, and they'll interact with you, and heed their areas of focus, and we'll, I'm sure, have an opportunity to interact in the future as you continue to make progress on your recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.